guys, it's Kim Spoon, and in today's video we're looking at the Tier 9 German heavy tank VK4502P Ausf. This was historically one of the Porsche designs to try to get a Porsche tank in the German armored divisions. And its predecessor, the VK4502P Ausf, was basically historically the same tank with the turret mounted on the front. Now, of course, if you have a Tier 8 tank that is already weakly armored and then you move to Tier 9, you have to actually buff the armor. So, WarGaming's done that. So the armor is much thicker than it was historically. But we'll look over that. So we're here on Rockfield, and because this thing has a rear-mounted turret, it is excellent at side scraping. So I've taken up the side scraping position, and I'm going to wait for someone to come around this corner. I'm platooning up with Sebastian 1145 in his Centurion Mark 7-1, and he's taking the left side with the rest of our mediums. Unfortunately, they do get overwhelmed over there, but we are able to take this side before they can flank us. So I see this VKB down the hill, so I try to push out, but as soon as I do that, all these enemies get spotted, so I move back to my side scraping spot and one shot into the enemy VKB. They actually have two VK4502P Ausfs on their team, so those are very dangerous targets. What this guy's doing with his VK4502B is not very smart. You have a rear-mounted turret, so if you poke the front of your tank out, you have to expose the entire tank before you can fire your gun. So that's why side scraping, or even just coming out backwards, is a smarter decision. VKB over here takes out Seb, and if I'd waited just a couple more seconds, I could have put that shot into the IS instead of hitting the little log thing next to the Carnarvon. Carnarvon comes out, track him, damages ammo rack, and our T-54 ammo racks him, so that's a bunch of assisting damage for me. It's almost 1,000 assisting damage. So that's going to help out with my experience. One shot to this VKB. Of course he hits the dirt, though. Actually, after all these replays, I'm going to pull up Armor Inspector and demonstrate something to you guys why I don't really like the VKB as much as, say, the E75. And it really just comes down to armor. But as of now, no one's actually shot at us unless we're side scraping. So we've bounced 2 shots. That was from the E50. So I know their E50 has completely flanked us. And I'm in a really bad spot. I have guys to my front, guys to my side, and guys to my rear. So I spend a couple seconds here thinking about what I should do. Take a speculative shot in that bush where I think that E50 is. And then look back and figure out that their enemy heavy tank, their IS, is not in a position to shoot me. So I can pull back over this hill without getting shot in the rear by the IS and take cover from the E50 and turn around to deal with these guys. So they have an IS-3 sniping, which is interesting. We have a friendly IS-3 taking on an enemy IS. Both of them get taken out, and their VKB is capping. So their IS cliff dives and actually lands on these pallets right here, so he can't actually move unless he dives over. He's probably take damage when he does that. So he's tracked. We're reloading. The reload on this tank is not very good at all. Bam, we take him out. That was actually a snipe at the commander's hatch, but that was just RNG. It's not due to the accuracy of this gun. It's not very accurate at all. It has a monstrous aim time. It's not very good in my opinion. I load an APCR shell here. I don't need it. I'm shooting at a side armor that's 80mm thick, but I really don't want to bounce off the VKB side armor. This gun is really trollish in that shots that really shouldn't bounce tend to bounce a lot, and shots that really shouldn't pen tend to pen a lot. So it's very interesting. It's very unreliable. We sneak that one into the E50's turret front, and right now we are in a position that's very strong. The Iraqis actually used a position similar to this at the Battle of 73 Easting during Desert Storm, where we are below a hill, so they have to come all the way over the hill to shoot at us because they don't have enough gun depression. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the Americans, during the Battle of 73 Easting, the Abrams was so fast, and due to its technological superiority, we were able to come over the hill and fire on the move, surprising the Iraqis and destroying their armored divisions. Dog an APCR shell into the ground, looking for a shot on the E50, and I look around behind me, making sure I'm not going to go out of the cap if I pull backwards, and we can snipe just over the hill and hit the front of his turret. So, that's our first game in the VKB. Let's take a look at the post-game stats. We can see first class and defender, 3,300 damage. That one wasn't bad. The reason I got a first class for that one is all the assisting damage. I got about 1,000 assisting damage. Actually, a little bit more, because I did track that IS3, and then he took a hit. So probably about 1,400 assisting damage, which helps out with the experience a lot. So now let's take a look at a much better game, where I do quite a bit more damage. Unfortunately, the ace tanker eludes me on this one, but I have to assume I was pretty close. So we're platooned up with Sebastian 1145, again grinding out our tier 9s, and we're on the Desert Sands map. So we see that they have an E75, IS8, M103, and STI, so they have one more tier 9, and all of their tier 9s are heavy tanks. IS8 is probably more of a heavium, but it's a heavy tank, it's listed as that. So those are all really dangerous targets, and when they all get spotted, I'll explain their mistake. They make a pretty bad mistake in this battle. So we're pushing forward to a position where I can side scrape, and it turns out that these pieces of rubble, these pieces of destructible wall, are actually high enough to cover my entire tank except for my turret. So I use these to my advantage. Pop over, we're spotted, plug one into the IS-8, and we back off. Now, if they had just shot my cover, I would have had to side scrape, and they could have probably penned me if I made a mistake like over angling when I'm side scraping, which is something that unfortunately I do all too often. E75 is looking at me, I don't have a shot, so I backed off, dodged his shot, IS-8. This is what I'm talking about with the penetration of this gun. That should have bounced. That would have, I think, that either hit his angled outside of the pike nose or the front of his turret. That's what the shell tracer indicates. So that should have bounced, but it didn't. But some shells either sail way wide, even though the aiming circle is fully dialed in, or they bounce off of the side of like Tiger 2s and stuff like that. Plug one to the M103. We're spotted again. And right now they have an IS-8 coming down the hill, an STI down the hill, a Panther 2, a KV-4, an E75, and an M103. They should have pushed us right here. They had all come up this hill at the same time. We have 3 heavy tanks, 1 tier 9, and 2 tier 8s. They could have easily overwhelmed us, then turn around and deal with our mediums. But they don't. They just sit in the open, exposing themselves to fire from both sides. This IS-8 knows what he's doing. He's waiting for me to fire, then he's going to come around and put one in. He puts one into my lower plate, and I start to side scrape right here, looking for shots on that Tiger 2. My gun is useless with the shell sitting in the barrel, so if I fire that, then it is useful. And my reload means that even if the IS-8 sees it and decides to come around, I will probably be reloaded. Try to hit that Tiger 2, doesn't happen. And now it's 1 against 2 right here. I do have some friendlies behind me, but the 2 heavy tanks are kind of focusing on me right now. So what I did is I backed up to get both of them in front of me. I don't want to have to be turning my turret or turning my tank and exposing my side armor to another one. Turning to the STI, so both of them are in low health. Our ISU takes out the IS-8, our IS-8 takes out the STI. So now we're all alone on this side, and we can push these enemy heavies. E75 turns sideways, we put one into the side of his turret, and our KV-4 takes him out. So now I'm going to side scrape right here, seeing this M103 come down. I know what this guy's about to do, so I load an APCR shell. Turns out I don't need it, but I think his turret's going to be facing me when he comes around this corner. Saw this one coming from a mile away, and we take him out. Load an AP shell, because our next likely target is the Panther 2. But it is now 4 against 3. And they have Tiger 2, KV-4, and Panther 2 against 2 of our tier 9s and 2 of our tier 8s. So this should be an easy win. ISA takes out the Tiger 2. We've done a bunch of damage, but it's been to a bunch of different tanks. We haven't gotten a lot of kills, just 1 on the M103. Shotgun the Panther 2 on the move, and looking for shots on this KV-4. I expect this guy to die, but our friendly KV-4 comes around the corner and bounces off of him. so we can get the kill through the back of this guy's turret.
They're knocked out.
So only 3 kills, but we did do a ton of damage. So let's take a look at the post-game stats for that battle. So 5,337 damage, first class, 3 kills, and 1,300 base XP. The reason we didn't get our Ice Tanker for that one, I'm pretty sure, is we were shooting tier 8s a bunch, Tiger 2, and KV4. So a bunch of those shells that could have gone into tier 9s went into tier 8s, so we didn't get that XP coefficient. So now let's take a look at Armor Inspector, and I'm going to demonstrate why I don't really like this tank. Of all the tier 9 heavies that I've played, which is actually only 2, actually 3, Conqueror, E75, and this, I really think that this is the weakest, and here's why. So, the VK4502P Ausf in Armor Inspector, and its own gun is trying to get through its armor. As you can see, it is very, very, very well armored. So why don't I like its armor? Good question. This is the PC model. The PC model has 273 millimeters of effective armor on its upper plate and 319 millimeters of effective armor on its lower plate. Even if you're shooting down at it, you have to be shooting down at an incredible angle to actually reliably penetrate. At such an angle, you can penetrate the top of the tank. So it's very, 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 very hard to pen. To penetrate the lower plate, you have to be so far underneath the tank, you can penetrate the underhull of the tank without it overmatching. So why don't you just shoot that? This is very, very, very well armored in the PC version. If we switch over to the Blitz version, things get a lot better for tanks trying to shoot at VKBs. As we can see, the upper plate's effective thickness went from 270 to 230, so that lost 40 millimeters of effective armor thickness. And the lower plate went from over 300 to just under 240. So you lost 60 millimeters of effective armor thickness. More than that, actually, just under 70. So this tank loses so much armor compared to its brother in the PC version. Now, if you're losing armor, you're expected to lose a bunch of weight because you're losing a bunch of steel from the front of your tank. That doesn't happen. You lose armor, you're just as heavy, have the same horsepower engine, have the same mediocre gun handling, and you're so slow. So, I don't see what's good about this tank. It's slow, gun handling's not great, you get penned by almost everything, and your only option is side scrape. There's nothing else you can do. If I see one of these things trying to go hull down, well, problem solved. I can penetrate the front of his turret. Or, not even that. If you have an accurate gun, you can get through the top of the turret. You're probably going to overmatch with anything. Actually, let's see the actual armor thickness. The armor thickness of the top of the roof is 40 millimeters, so anything over 120 millimeters will overmatch. Of course, 40 millimeters of armor isn't that great. So let's switch over to the Conqueror's gun. Won't overmatch, but you have the accuracy to snipe the commander's hatch. With the increased penetration, you can easily get through the lower plate, even at a perfect angle, just before the side armor overmatches. That's a weak point. You can hit right there for 245 millimeters of effective armor, and if the turret is in any way angled, you can penetrate its cheeks. These aren't even its cheeks, that's the side armor. If the turret is aimed at you, so let's change that, then you just load gold and put it right through the front of his turret. So, armor is mediocre at best. Speed is really, really, really bad. Let's switch back over to Blitz to look at the stats of this thing. Okay, so back in Blitz, we can see that the armor is 170 upper and then 100 on the sides. Turret armor is only 252 millimeters thick, so anything with gold ammo at its tier or even under its tier will penetrate. But maneuverability is really its weak point. It's almost 80 tons with an 840 horsepower engine, so that's a really bad power to weight ratio. This thing accelerates so slowly. Speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour. You will never get to 30 kilometers per hour unless you're going down a hill with someone pushing you. Traverse speed, 19 degrees per second. It takes you forever to turn this tank. Turret traverse, 16 degrees per second. That's almost E100 standards, which is atrocious. Standard shell damage is normal for a 128mm gun. Penetration, 184 to 307. So that's because of the caliber of the gun and the penetration of the gun, the plus or minus 25% pen roll is really wide. And it seems, even though this is probably just confirmation bias, that it swings to the very ends of the spectrum a lot, because I get a lot of 184mm pen rolls on the fronts of like Tiger 2s, and it just ricochets off the lower plate. So it's very, very, very unreliable. Accuracy 0.38. That's not good at all. But aim time 2.9 seconds is atrocious. So couple that with the 4.14 rounds per minute rate of fire, which is just better than the T-34, which has a notoriously slow rate of fire, and you take forever to reload, you spend almost 3 seconds aiming the gun, and then you don't hit what you're shooting at, or you do hit and bounce. So it's not necessarily a great gun in my opinion. So this gun makes me not too excited to see what the mouse is like. As we can see, the mouse has the same gun. It has the same 128mm KWK 44L55 gun. So it's the same raw gun stats, same penetration, a little bit better rate of fire, same damage, and actually the accuracy and the aim time are the same on the mouse. So yay. The mouse gets a 4.62 rounds per minute rate of fire, and the E100 gets a 3.69. So the mouse has a little bit better rate of fire than the E100, but the E100 has a gun that is over 25mm bigger. So mouse maybe not going to be the best tank in my opinion, but I don't have it yet. When I do get it, I'll certainly make a video of it and show you guys what I think about it. But while we're on the subject of heavy tanks, I will share an opinion that I'm sure many of you have about heavy tanks in Blitz because of the hit skins. Heavy tanks in Blitz, in my opinion, are much weaker than they are in PC, and Wargaming might have done that as a balance feature. If you bounce off of all the tanks then you see, then the battles will take longer, and Blitz is supposed to be a very fast-paced game. But with hit skins, heavy tanks are kind of useless. In World of Tanks, medium tanks like the E50 or the 30 OTD or the Panther rely on not getting hit to keep their health. So if you can't hit a medium tank, it doesn't matter if you have a hit skin on, because you can't physically hit them. It doesn't matter. Heavy tanks rely on not getting penetrated to keep their health. So in an E100, if I see an E100 like this, which is wiggling its turret left and right, well, in PC, you're actually looking at a skin that's like this. So do I shoot at the front of the turret, lower plate, side of the turret? I don't know. In Blitz, it tells you where to shoot because you have a hit skin. So if you're in your tier 10 medium, you'll load gold because you see an E100 that's hull down. At this angle, you shoot for the front of the turret because that's going to be gray. Side armor is going to be red. If he angles like that, then this side armor will be gray and the front of the turret will be red. So it tells you where to penetrate a heavy tank. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to memorize the armor inspector layouts. You don't have to figure out through experience what's the weakest part of the armor. It tells you. So heavy tanks rely on not getting penetrated, but it tells you how to do that. So medium tanks in Blitz are much stronger in my opinion, and that's why you see a lot of the very good players playing in their tier 10 mediums instead of their tier 10 heavies, because they're much more versatile and they're able to keep their health a lot better. So the mouse, and this is something I'm not too stoked for, the front of the turret is weak. In PC, people know that, but if you angle it like this, they'll still shoot at the front of the turret. They'll think, oh, maybe I'll pen. No, they're just going to bounce off. There's a weak point just underneath the inside track, below the spaced armor skirt. In PC, it doesn't tell you that. You have to learn that. But in Blitz, there'll be a little gray section there, telling you to shoot underneath the spaced armor, and you can get through the side of the hull. Or the turret. If you load gold, it'll tell you either to shoot at the front of the turret or the side of the turret. So heavy tanks are inherently nerfed, in my opinion, in Blitz because of the hit skins. That doesn't mean they're tons of fun. Like the E100, the reason I like this thing is, well, you just melt tier 8s with that huge gun, and then you bounce their return fire, because this isn't because Blitz is telling them to do this, but they'll still shoot at your angled turret in their tier 8 heavy, even though it's completely red. So that's their fault. That's not Blitz's fault. But if you have a respectable player shooting at you in a heavy tank, you can't really do anything. I mean, the top bar on the E100 is a big weak point. Does everyone know that? Of course not. But when you're looking at it through sniper mode, hey, there's a little gray spot, I'm going to shoot at that. And if you have any sort of accuracy, you can hit it. Or the lower plate, or versus the inside of the inside track. It tells you where to shoot. You don't have to think about it. The game does the work for you. So that's why heavy tanks are nerfed in my opinion. But I still think they're tons of fun. E100 because of the massive gun. FV215B because of its insane DPM. These are two of my favorite tanks because of actually their guns. But rant aside, VK452B, I don't really like it. Maybe I won't like the mouse, but we'll have to see in the future. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up down below and subscribe for more awesome tank videos. Thanks.